Yo, what's up, folks? It's Impact, and I want to take this time to welcome you all back to the Hurt Business 101. Let's get right into this video, man. Today's video, I want to give you guys my breakdown and prediction of the Teofimo Lopez versus Jermaine Ortiz fight going down tomorrow night on ESPN and ESPN Plus in the 140-pound division. Let's get right into this video. Listen up, y'all. This fight is one of those fights that I'm looking forward to because these guys are close to the same level. Teofimo Lopez is a step above Jermaine Ortiz, but not too far above Jermaine Ortiz, where this won't be a really good fight and a possible upset here if Teo is not taking this thing serious. These two guys have a past. These guys fought each other in the amateurs, and a lot of time when guys have they know each other or they have a story that precedes the pros, they come into the pros with something to prove. The guy who won the fight comes in trying to prove, I just got your number. I got what it takes to beat you. The guy who lost always has the feeling like, the amateurs was the amateurs. This is the pros now, and I'm going to show you. And these fights always end up being really good. Listen, Teofimo Lopez is a real explosive fighter, super athletic, and he has punching power in both hands. He can put your lights out at any given moment. But one thing I noticed about Teofimo Lopez that I hope he doesn't fall into for his sake is he's a bit inconsistent. He's up, down. And for his sake, I hope that he's at a point in his career where he's going to consistently be the same guy. Not saying he's going to have a spectacular performance every time, but we'll be able to know what they expect from him. We watched him in the fight against Nakatani not have such a good outing and be in a dogfight with Nakatani when he should have dominated that. And then he came back and got a spectacular knockout against Comey in the second round. And then after that, he had one of the performances of his lifetime when he defeated Vasily Lomachenko. Then after Vasily Lomachenko, he goes down under, takes a loss to George Kambosos where he didn't look good. He got a bit rattled. He comes back against Campa. He performs well. Then he comes back after that against the tricky Sandor Martin. Doesn't look good. Sandor Martin is a tricky guy, so, but he didn't look good. And then he comes back against Josh Taylor and looks spectacular again. That's the issue that he could run into here because he just had a great performance. If he's looking past Ortiz, like sometimes he has a tendency to do, look past the guy he's a step above, and then when he fights the guy that is perceived to be a step above him, he shows up. Can't do that in this fight. One thing he needs to do is make sure that he does a lot of lunging. He's a lunge fighter. But when he lunges, the thing that's unique about Teo is it's unpredictable what he's going to throw when he lunges. He can lunge with his left, lunge with his right. He could throw an overhand. He could come up underneath with his lunges with like an uppercut hook type of thing. So you never know. He's so explosive. If he catches you with those shots, he can end your night or he can change the outcome of the fight. And in this fight, I really believe he definitely has the edge when it comes to explosiveness. So he can afford to take more risk and he can afford to make more mistakes, but he ultimately has the eraser where he can make up for his mistakes, whereas though Ortiz doesn't have as big of a punch. So he's going to have to be a little bit more careful. I think he needs to get out to a quick start because one thing about Teofimo Lopez, when he falls behind the 8-ball and the other guy gets a lead on him, especially if the guy hits him and makes him have something to think about, he'll start sitting back a little bit more than he should and watching, and he gets a little bit rattled, and then he starts lunging more and making more mistakes, and he loses some of his principles. He's not the most fundamental guy, but his athleticism allows him to do things in an unorthodox way that might not be so fundamental and get away with it. And I think he has a lot of advantages in that way in this fight. He could take advantage of Ortiz. Ortiz doesn't have quite the hand speed he has, although he's not slow, but Teofimo definitely has the edge in hand speed here. I think Ortiz needs to he does a lot of good things that he can use in this fight to try to beat Teofimo Lopez. He's a really good combination puncher. He lets his combinations go fluently. I mean, they just flow. He's also really good at fighting, throwing combinations and fighting off the turns. He doesn't really lose balance off turns. He knows how to he knows exactly when to turn a guy. Once he gets his combination off before the guy kind of has the time to respond, he has to try to turn. Now in this fight with Teofimo Lopez, as we watched and I predicted with him against Vasily Lomachenko, that he would be athletic enough to stay with Lomachenko when he tries to turn him and put him on crazy angles. And that's one strength that Teo has. Even though I believe Ortiz still needs to utilize the turning, he can't become flustered. But when he does turn him and he doesn't get Teo out of place with the turns, he just needs to use the turns to continue to switch things up. Because one thing Ortiz does is become predictable sometimes. You know what I mean? He'll fall into patterns, and you can't fall into patterns against a guy like Teo because he's explosive and he does have good instincts and he can pick up on patterns. And that's when he'll explode and throw a hard shot in the spot where he know you're vulnerable at. So you can't get into patterns. You got to continue to change things up. One thing he needs to avoid, he's also a lunging fighter just like Teo. But in this fight, he needs to avoid a lot of the lunging in. Particularly, he likes to lunge in and lead with his left, his jab, when he lunges in. But instead of lunging in, throwing his jab, and then throwing his right, but he gets the left back home, he lunges in with his jab, and then as he's throwing a right hand, his left hand falls to the wayside. He can't afford that because Teo jumps in with you, and he throws the hard right hands like he did Comey, catches you, and closes the curtain. So he needs to make sure if he is going to jump in, he can lead with that jab, but he has to immediately get that left back home in case Teo tries to throw the hard right, and he can follow Teo's right with a right hand of his own and try to capitalize on that. So he needs to try to catch Teo coming in, make Teo sort of, not the head-on car crashes where they both lunge. He kind of needs to try to make Teo like run into a parked car, if you know what I'm saying. Like Teo lunging in, he needs to be set with his feet set, holding his ground, and try to fire straight shots to catch Teo as he's coming in to make Teo start thinking twice about doing all of that lunging. That's something he needs to do. Also, he needs to be in really good cardiovascular condition because sometimes he tends to fade down those back four rounds, 8 through 12, 9 through 12, he starts to fall asleep a little bit. And he does what I call not only fatiguing, I believe it's because of his fatigue. Sometimes he also mentally fatigues and loses focus. And it's like he's at a stop sign and he's waiting for the light to turn green. Like you ever been driving and stop at a stop sign and you just pause there like you in a haze. And then all of a sudden you snap to it like, oh shit, I'm at a stop sign. It's not a light. And then you go. Sometimes I think it's due to his conditioning and the mental pressure that gets put on him in fights. He sometimes starts to fall into that mode where he goes into lulls and gets caught peeking into action. He needs to keep Teo actually standing outside thinking about ways to try to get in and try to create ways to get in instead of getting in a groove where he can jump in, hit him with shots, go on an angle, jump in from that angle, catch him with shots, and get him in trouble. Listen, my prediction for this fight is Teofimo Lopez ultimately winning this fight. I think he's did better when he fought at the higher level. And I believe this fight, although he can get caught looking past the guy, I think this fight, because he knows there's a lot of big things on the horizon for him, I really do believe that the cream is going to rise to the top. I can see him winning a decision. It could be a unanimous decision, but a hotly contested fight that still would be really good, or a split decision. But I mean, hey, like I said, if Ortiz is caught jumping in and gets caught in those head-on car crashes and gets hit with something, he could end Ortiz's night early. I also could see a situation, not my prediction. I predict Teo to win, but I also could see Ortiz being able to keep it together. And if Teo is having one of those nights when he's just not on point and he's not being consistent, him getting upset here. That's it, man. That's good. That's my prediction, man. I am going to go live for the main event tomorrow night as well. I'll put up a notification. It'll be a reminder. And that's all for the day, man. I want to thank you guys for tuning in to another edition of the Hurt Business 101. You know what they say. It's no business like show business. But I say it's no business like the Hurt Business. 101, done.